On this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast, Unveiling Time Management. So welcome back to this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast. My name is Sean Yesner, owner and founder of Yesner Law, and I am joined, as always, by your financial coach, George Corbello. How you doing, George?
Sean, I've got time for you, but I'm doing good, buddy. How's it going?
It is going really well. I've got all my watches that are keeping all my time for me. So
okay, we're going to be funny today.
No, we're not.
No, doing well. Starting off, again, it's the new year, so we'll still use that. Today of the recording, though, it's the official quitting day, right, of all the resolutions. Isn't this the last day that most people quit on their resolutions?
Yeah, resolution quit. I looked it up after we talked about it on last week's episode. Today is officially Quitter Day.
There you go.
Is what it's called. It's the day that most people give up. It's Friday the 10th of January, and it's the day that most people give up on their New Year's resolution.
Nice. So I'm going to go get that donut right after we do this recording. So I'm going to be awesome.
I saw a meme on Facebook. It said, "I got my donut without sprinkles. Dieting is hard." So,
we're having fun.
We're having a good time. So we do have a guest on this week's show. Speaking of time, one of the things that's always bothered me. I'm actually really looking forward to today's interview because I use my email inbox as my to-do list.
Okay.
And so a lot of times my stress level goes with however full my email inbox is.
Gotcha.
And yesterday my sister was in town. And so I played hooky, and we went to Busch Gardens yesterday. You want to know how many emails are in my pending email inbox right now?
20?
Well, I've got 73 unread, and I've got over 115 total.
Oh, boy.
Which means I've probably got about 40 that I've read that I now need to take some kind of action
actually
on.
do something. Okay, yeah, so that would be a little stressful.
Yeah, so my stress level is a little bit high. I'll probably be working today and tomorrow. So that means I'll be working while I'm watching college football playoffs, NFL playoffs.
I think you're doing okay, buddy.
Yes.
If you're working and still be able to watch, but hopefully you can pay attention so that you're not making any mistakes itself while you're watching some touchdowns.
I hope so. I hope not. But I'm really excited for our guest today. So let me introduce him real quick. He was educated at McGill University, obtained a Bachelor of Commerce a while ago. I'll let him say when if he wants to. Specializing in organizational behavior, worked for 10 years in product management at Procter & Gamble and more business forms, then began his own consulting practice and invented the time quarter, something I'm really interested in learning a lot more about. It's a user-friendly device for tracking time spent on various activities. Clients use this device to accurately measure their own results. The time quarter tracking system has been used by organizations in 31 countries and around the globe. His groundbreaking productivity research with the time quarter, his practical insights into life balance, and his keen eye on the impact of technology on work have generated international media attention on numerous occasions. He's also presented papers on his research at international time use conferences. He also conducts practical seminars, bringing an entertaining and interactive style to his presentations. He's also a professional facilitator, guiding teams to actionable results. He's also written 3 books, A Complete Waste of Time, Cut the Glut of Email, which I'm going to order when this interview is over, and The Poetic Path, his latest book, The Poetic Path to Getting More Done. Welcome our guest, Mark Elwood. Welcome, Mark.
Hi, Sean and George. Happy to be here today.
So, and I also want to give out, so your website is getmoredone.com, and your email address, mark@getmoredone.com, exactly how it sounds. You're the president of Pace Productivity. So I guess where I will start, how much were you wincing when I was telling you how I use my email inbox as my to-do list and how many pending emails I have?
Look, that's fine. All of us face an onslaught of lots of things to do. The successful people find ways to spend time on their top priority activities. So you're not alone.
That makes me feel better. So how do you figure out what your top priority issues are?
We ask people where they think they should be spending their time with these time studies. And we compare that to where they actually spend their time. The most recent research I did was looking at men versus women. And I came to the conclusion that women are actually better at managing their time than men. And there were four major reasons for that. And one of the reasons addresses what you just mentioned, the top priority activities. So if you ask people, what do you think you need to be doing in your job? Salespeople will say they need to sell, and managers say they need to manage, and so on. And as it turns out, when you map that to their time spent, most people are only able to spend 20% of their time on those top priority activities. The rest is administrative time and meetings and processing things and traveling and personal time and so on. So 20% is the average. With this recent research that I looked at, women are at 22% and men are only at 18%.
Oh.
So women are doing a little bit better. Now, there are some people who get up to the 30% range or more, and that's the key to time management. How can you measure your time and then use some of the techniques that all of us talk about to get up to a third of your time or more on those top priority activities?
So is that 18%, 22%, 30% of a 24-hour day, or is it 18 whatever
The work day.
of a
A
work
work
day?
day.
So that's the work day. So typically people are working about 45 hours per week or so, 46, and men work longer than women. This is in knowledge jobs. And that includes some personal time in there as well. So of a 46-hour week, just 20% of that is spent on those top priority activities.
Okay. Let me ask one thing. Obviously, when it comes to time management, again, we're crushing debt, right? So we're all talking about money here. But how does managing time effectively translate into better financial management? Like what are some of the things that you've seen and studies wise that like that time management helps us in our pocketbook? Because I think that's where most people want to. Where does that translate to them?
Yeah, let me step back a little bit and talk about a sort of meta trend that affects both of those areas. It's occurred to me that there are three areas of life where we know where we want to be, but where our actions are not consistent with our goals. Those three, first is sort of body image. Oh, I ate a whole box of chocolates last night and I'm overweight and I know I need to do some things differently. So people know that they want to be in better shape, but for some reason they're kind of embarrassed that they're not where they want to be. The second is time management. And I track how people spend their time, but a lot of people say, well, I don't want to know how I spend my time. Well, I waste my time all over the place. Yes, but you said you wanted more time to earn money or more time for your family or whatever. Shouldn't you measure it? And the third is the area that you fellows spend a lot of time talking about, which is financial management. And the same thing happens. Uh-oh, I blew my, credit card. I spent all my time
Yeah.
on, coffee or this or that or whatever. And so in all of those areas, what all of us recommend, what you folks recommend, is you measure stuff first, right? How much did you spend last week on all of your different expenses? And if you do that consistently for a month or so, you're going to see where all your money goes.
Right.
And that's your first step to cutting back on some of those expenses or shifting them around or whatever. Same with time. If you can measure how you're spending your time, then you can start to look at some strategies to be more effective. And the third one is the body image. You measure your caloric intake
Right.
or you measure your weight or whatever. So there is a relation between time and money for sure. Interestingly, we find that um, some people spend a lot of time to save money. They'll drive across town to save $1 on a tank of gas or
Right.
something like that. Whereas successful people spend money to save time. They'll hire somebody to cut the grass or take care of the kids or whatever. So there is a relationship between those two. And often people see time as kind of infinite. Oh, I got lots of time to spend, but they see money as limited because their salary is limited or their savings are limited or whatever. But nonetheless, as you've recommended, if you can carve out a few of those dollars to spend on the most important things, on investments rather than consumption, then you can spend your time more effectively.
You know, it reminds me of two things that conversation is. So the other day, it was Wednesday. I had to be at home because I had a guy coming out to one of my palm trees got hit by lightning and it looks really bad. And so I wanted to know if it was diseased, if it
Right.
needs to come down, if it can be salvaged. So I had an arborist coming out to the house. Well, Wednesdays are my days for my weekly staff meetings. I meet with the staff and how are things going and what's going on. Well, my thought process was, do I want to make the 40-minute round trip drive, 45-minute round trip drive to and from work and lose that 45 minutes? Or why don't I stay home, do the meeting by phone or Zoom,
Right.
and be able to work in that 40 to 45 minutes? And so makes me feel good that maybe I'm making the right decision in terms of managing time. The other thing that occurred to me, a funny story, was a guy that I know through networking hired a driver to drive him around, and while that driver is driving him around, he's in the back working on his computer.
That makes sense.
And both of those strategies, I think, would be things that you could do to either save money, reduce time, maybe a little bit, make more money, all the above, right?
Indeed, if you think about how much your hourly rate is worth, and most people, unlike lawyers, don't charge by the hour, but if you were to calculate that, it's 30, 40, $50 an hour, whatever, equivalency. Who could you hire for a little bit less than that to do some of those administrative tasks? And indeed, people are virtual assistants are available that work in foreign countries for a lot less than what we might pay them here. And so that's how they pitch themselves. Spend a little bit of money hiring this virtual assistant, and you can spend more of your time on your highest priority activities, which earn you at a higher rate than what you're going to pay that virtual assistant.
Yeah, and I'm looking on your website again, getmoredone.com, and you work with teams, and one of the links on there is an extra hour a day per employee, and talking about less wasted time at the office, how employees can gain an extra hour a day for their top priorities.
Yes, there are others out there who say, oh, we'll triple your productivity or we'll double or whatever. And you think, well, what are you measuring there? So I'm able to measure where the time is spent, identify those gaps, and about an hour a day is what most knowledge workers can pick up. It's not going to be massively more than that. So that's where you want to do that fine tuning to pick up some time that you spend on administration, hire that virtual assistant, or automate things, or use AI or whatever. But here's the thing. You mentioned my age. I started this business in 1990 before a lot of people had voicemail, certainly before email, before smartphones,
Yeah.
before computers were rampant. There were some. And so we've seen all those technologies being introduced over time. And what I found is the time that knowledge workers spend on administrative tasks way back then was around 25%. Today, it's 25%. So those who talk about AI as this amazing new technology that's going to change productivity, well, indeed, it as you've found in your business and others have found, there are a lot of great benefits. But I suspect that knowledge workers who are doing managerial or sales jobs 10 years from now will probably still be burdened by a lot of administrative time. So you need to use those tools effectively. You mentioned email, by the way. We've measured time spent on unnecessary email. And that's what the employees themselves considered to be unnecessary. It's a whopping massive 3.4 hours per week. Well, wait a minute. Wasn't email going to make us all more productive? Indeed, it was. But it comes along with that 3.4 hours of unnecessary time. And that's the dilemma that technology poses for us is that it creates these unintended spin-offs and side effects as well.
Yeah, the one thing I did notice when you, again, this is more in the corporate world, right? So it's like, let me CC you, right? Let me put you on this email, right? You got to read those emails. So the problem is when, so I'll have 100 emails, right? And I start getting nervous, like, oh, what's important? The problem is, even if I'm CC'd on an email, I still have to read it to see that I know it's not something like an action that I have to do. So for me, it's more of a time suck because I have to sit through, maybe if I'm lucky, 25% of the email that comes in actually has an action that's needed. Everything else is either like, hey, just wanted to let you know, or the CC. And that for me is like that's the killer with obviously with emails. The other one is meetings, right? Meetings. If you have a meeting just to have a meeting, like that, that's the other thing too. It's like a lot of them that we see in the corporate world, it's like we're sitting in meetings but not getting work done. There's no agenda, there's no follow through, there's no follow up. So for me, that those are for, again, as you could tell, I'm a little pet peeve on those two things. It's when it comes to corporate world, but ooh,
yeah, I was
let me address those two.
Yeah.
Emails. First of all, everyone complains about emails, but you know what? There's no evil troll down in the basement of the building sending these things out. It's all of us.
right.
If you copy 20 people, you've sent out 20 emails. So we all need to take responsibility first. It's like bad drivers. I ask people, how many bad drivers are out there? And if you ask an audience, typically the average would be about 1/3 or 33%. Then you ask all the bad drivers to stand up. Nobody stands up. It's everyone else. Same with email. It's not everyone else. It's us.
Right.
Back to the meetings. I've got one principle about meetings for attendees, and that is everybody who attends a meeting has the right and the responsibility to improve the dynamics of that meeting. So if you're at a badly run meeting, you come home and go, it was a horrible meeting. It's because you didn't make a difference. So you have the right and the responsibility to say, hey, it's 5 minutes after, let's start. It's time to start the meeting. Or I don't understand what we just agreed to. Can we get some clarification on that? Or, gee, we seem to be off on a tangent here. Can we get back to the main subject? Anybody can do that. You don't have to wait for the boss to do that. So take responsibility for improving the dynamics of the meetings rather than just complaining that they weren't well run.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I was
great tips.
I agree. I'm writing it down. I was a little hesitant to start a weekly meeting for that reason. I didn't want it to just be an hour that wastes time. But I've had to tell the staff, here's why we're doing the meeting. Here's what we want to accomplish from the meeting. And it's basically a chance. It's an hour that they know is blocked off every week where they can have access to me if they really, really need it. Now, if it's an emergency, let me know. But, knock on my door, pop in my office. But otherwise, it's we've got an agenda that we try to run on, and it's their 1 hour a week that they know they've got uninterrupted access to me.
But you've laid that out very clearly. And by the way, the purpose of most meetings, and yours are more of kind of like a hub where you're communicating important information about what's going on in the firm and so on. But the purpose of most meetings is to convene stakeholders to make decisions that lead to action. I'll repeat that, to convene stakeholders who make decisions that lead to action. Yours are a little bit different, but for most meetings, that's what you're doing. It's got to be decision and action oriented. And when you have that lens, then it really makes a difference. Again, yours are a little bit different because you're communicating information that everybody needs to know. So one question you could ask yourself is, do I need a meeting to do that, or can I just send out an update on client matters or something like that?
Correct. Yeah.
Well, and that's a good tip, because I do think that would apply to my meetings as well, because I know that we try to leave every meeting with, what are we going to do? What actions are we going to take from this meeting? What systems at the office are we going to improve? Whose responsibility is it to improve those systems? And that's, going back to tying it into crushing debt. If I can improve the systems at the office, if I can make the systems at the office better, that'll end up saving me time time that I
To
can
somewhere
use to put into more clients, that I can bill more clients, make more money, or as the employee, the more valuable you are to your organization, the more money you can command from that organization. The more efficient you are, the better you get your job done. Theoretically, there's raises and bonuses
Right.
and all that other stuff. Or you just go off on your own, you start your own gig, and then you fall into the trap that I do, that you're busier more than ever because it's your name on the door.
Yes, your name on the door. Exactly.
Indeed, relating it back to money, if I get paid, well, I don't know, whatever, $50,000 a year, sure, but I'm giving the company $80,000 worth of value. And
Right.
so in exchange, they say, well, we'll give you a salary of 50,000. And so how do I make that $80,000 work harder? I need to make sure I spend my time on those top priority activities. That's what I'm giving my time back to the company, and they're giving me dollars in exchange.
Yeah. I did want to talk a little bit about the time quarter device that you have. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit because it was really interesting to me. Now, I know this mostly this is an audio podcast. We do have video. We'll definitely put this episode up on Patreon so
Yeah.
people can watch it. But you invented the time quarter app, and I'll say from where I sit, it looks kind of like a calculator.
Yes, it's sort of like a
Yeah.
large remote control. You mentioned
Yeah.
an app, so it's a device.
I'm
It's a
sorry.
device, yeah.
Yeah, I said app. I meant device. I apologize.
It's better than an app for a whole bunch of reasons. One, the physicality of it, you don't miss it. Two, it's a little less complicated to use than a doorbell. So doorbells give you doorbells give you audio, or this gives you audio, tactile, and visual feedback. It lasts a lot longer than a smartphone. It's going to last for 200 hours and give you constant feedback. I don't want to make a big pitch for it, but people like using it. And one of the reasons that it works so well is the anonymity of data. When we do our time studies, I never use employee names in my reports. And we promise that to employees, and they go, well, okay, sure, I'll track my time and all this wasted stuff that's coming my way. So it's fun and simple and easy to use. And, we got the formula right in terms of the ergonomics of it to make it easy for people to use. And it's there for them. And we're only doing the studies for 2 weeks. So that's the other thing.
Well, and that was going to kind of be my question, is that it would appear that what this technology is for a company to work with you all to do a study of how are my employees using our time. It's not something, it doesn't appear from the way you're describing it, it doesn't appear to be something that I can buy and use in my business every day. It appears more to be something that I would work with you to say, hey, I want to do a study of how to make my employees more profitable, more efficient, and I guess for lack of a better word, I would rent these
Yes.
devices from you to collect the data to then get back to me on how efficient the staff is.
Yeah, I pivoted my business. Originally, the idea was to sell them to lawyers and such. It turned out to be the world's most popular product that everybody thought somebody else should buy. So I went to the lawyers and they said, "Oh, thanks, we tried it, but based on our business, you're better off in the accounting world." So I had some accounting people use it, and they say, independent consultants are really going to love this. And I went to the independent consultants, and they said, "Have you talked to the lawyers?" So I abandoned that. It's renting them out. There are lots of time tracking tools for people in your business, and plenty of them out there. This is a diagnostic tool. It's short term. You just do it for a couple of weeks, and again, it's fun to use. It's not for time and billing.
Yeah, I actually tried to use an app that our friend Tiffany Kellogg recommended, and I couldn't do it. And part of the reason kind of relates to one of the first questions I asked you, is that I was trying to be, I think, too comprehensive. So I was trying to use this app to track when did I wake up and how much time did I spend making breakfast and how much time did I spend in the shower and driving to work. And then once I got to work,
That's
with
a lot. Yeah.
doing meetings and recording podcasts
Sure.
and da-da-da-da-da-da. And if I missed clicking on the app because I went to lunch, all the data went sideways.
Mm.
And so I found it really hard to keep up with an app for purposes of time tracking.
Well, Sean, we might just have to have you use one of these pro
Nice.
bono because you're a keen guy. Um, so, yeah, you do it short term, similar to measuring your money. You don't want to be tracking your expenses every week of the year. And some people do, and it's kind of a hobby for them. But with the money and financial issues, just do it for a short term, and you'll learn a lot about your patterns of behavior
Right.
as you would with tracking your time. And that's the first step in making improvements with tackling debt or tackling your time is just measure what's going on and then set some objectives and see where the differences are. What are your objectives financially in terms of savings, in terms of expenses for every month? And when you see the differences between where you are and where you want to be, then you can develop some strategies for how to get back on track.
Is there a particular size company that this would work for better or worse? In other words, so my organization is 5 people, but what if someone is self-employed? What if they're 50 people, 150 people? Is there a sweet spot in terms of organizations that are between this size and this size tend to get the most out of it, or does it not matter?
It tends to be organizations where there are a lot of employees doing similar types of things. They've got salespeople who are all selling, or they've got account managers who are doing that. I did one in retail gas stations recently. So there's a number of managers managing those gas stations. So it tends to be people doing the same thing. But I've certainly tracked lots of independent consultants who wanted to see where they're spending their time, and they're one-person businesses. Probably things like small retail stores and so on wouldn't work. It tends to be knowledge workers as opposed to, guys doing home renovations or something like that.
Right. It's only so many hours a day you can swing a hammer, saw a saw, I guess.
It's funny. Hey, so let me ask this: what advice would you give someone who's overwhelmed, in these companies and management itself, when it comes to managing both their time and their money?
I tell people to make a daily to-do list for the time aspect of that, and because it affects the past, the present, and the future. A to-do list tells you what's coming up in the future for the rest of the day. When you look at it, oh, I finished doing something. It focuses on the present, and it's a look back at the past. At the end of the day, you can say, what did I accomplish? One quick tip in doing that to-do list, I ask people to start with a blank slate and imagine you had nothing to do today. What would you do to affect your results a month from now? So I get
Ooh,
people to
like
think
that.
outwards to sort of long term as opposed to just today. And so, oh, I need to hire a new person. I need to make some sales. Those things affect your results a month from now. And so those are the things that go on your to-do list at first. In financial terms, same thing. What are your long-term financial goals that are not a month out, but maybe a year out in terms of salary, in terms of vacations, uh, buying a house, whatever. You want people to think long-term and get away from the moment of buying a coffee or ordering something on Amazon. But we want people to think more about the long term. So financial management and time management both have that in common. The more you think long term, that affects how your activities occur today.
Well, I want to let people know again, and again, I'll put it in the notes. But if you want to get a hold of Mark, it's getmoredone.com. There's a ton of stuff. I've been kind of playing with the website as we've been talking here, and in preparing for the episode. There's a ton of stuff. There's success stories. There's ways about how you all help sales teams. There's all the information on time quarter. There's services, training, team building. I know you've also got the 3 books, with your latest one being The Poetic Path to Getting More Done. And I was reading the description of that book, and it's time management, but it's all in terms of poems.
Yeah, we should do a quick one. This is one of the very short ones that finishes up the book. Your time is your ally. It's not a black hole. The choice is your own to take more control. Beginning right now, it's for you to decide. You'll get more results with a new sense of pride. Be inspired today to make a small shift. Your time is your own. More hours are your gift. Once you get started, you'll be able to boast that you've got much more time for what matters most.
Nice.
That's awesome. That's awesome. But one of my goals, so I do read a lot, and I didn't read as many books in 2024 as I would have liked. So I'm always on the hunt for new stuff to read. So yeah, I'm gonna be playing around on Amazon later today, for sure. I'm gonna be playing around on Amazon today. Again, it's getmoredone.com. Mark MARK at getmoredone.com. Anything else? Anything we might have missed? Anything you want to mention?
Well, time is money. We've talked about both today. And I want people to be, as I said, measuring their time, measuring how their expenses work, and thinking about long-term, about the future. And that's the starting point. Some of the strategies that you and your guests talk about, certainly put those into place, but start by just seeing where you are. That can be quite revealing.
So some of the things I learned, right? So I still don't own a lawnmower, so I'm not cutting my grass. So I am so correct on that.
I am
one.
not mowing my grass either.
Not doing that. The one thing I've done from a business standpoint, I don't do like social media posts as well. So I just don't. That's not my strength. So I don't focus on those things. So I love your tip where it's like, don't waste your time in areas that you could be doing something else, especially if you can put it in the budget, but making sure that you can, maximize your time to, your priorities, to the work that you feel passionate or want to do from that standpoint. So I love that. So I'm going to continue to do that. That's going to be like, what else can I remove? Maybe cleaning. Maybe I can stop cleaning and get somebody else to do it.
And so I know for me, from a business perspective, one of the things that I might want to focus on this year is the finances of the law firm.
Sure.
And so my undergrad degree is in accounting. So I tend to get a little geeked out about, what does my balance sheet say? What does my profit and loss say? How did I do this year versus last year? And I measure a lot of that stuff. But it probably is time in 2025 to get out of the accounting of the law firm so that I can be the attorney in the law firm.
Nice.
I think that's kind of where I'm going. That and battling with my emails every day to get them down. I don't think I'm going to give up on that.
Well, and you also said you're going to write a book too. So I'm still remembering all the things you said. So
I didn't say I was going to write a book. I said I'd take the two books and combine them into one bigger book.
Okay, well
that's a lot less work than writing a brand new book.
You got it, buddy.
I'll let AI write my new book for me. Anything else, Mark?
I just want people to think about that. Meeting management, that you can make a difference. Email management, you can make a difference. Don't feel out of control. The idea is to take more control of your time and your activities rather than letting them take control of you. You can make a difference. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. I've taken a ton of notes. I take notes so that I know when I go back to put the show notes together, I know what I'm talking about, but I just took a ton of notes on today's episode regardless. So thank you again. We appreciate you being a guest on this week's show.
You bet.
So
time is worth.
time well spent. But I do need to take a little bit of the end of our time to talk about a few things that are going on. So number one, we've always got our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/crushingdebt. If you want to go there and give anything to us to help improve, it all goes back into the show. So you can go there, patreon.com/crushingdebt. We've also got our friend Sam Cohen at Attorneys First Insurance. He does errors and omissions or malpractice insurance for attorneys and title companies. So another great way to support us. If you know an attorney or title company that needs E&O coverage or malpractice insurance, contact Sam at attorneysfirst.com. Also, as you can see, I am wearing my Grand Club 2024 Pan Can sweatshirt. It is cold for us Floridians out there.
Yeah, I got to say that. It is a little bit chilly, but I won't complain because I've had a few friends, from Canada. They're like, it's, in the negative digits. So, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. You're up there in Canada, Mark. Down here, it is freezing. It is in the 50s.
Get used to it.
So I am in my sweatshirt, and like I said, we were at Busch Gardens yesterday. I had my skull cap on to cover my ears. It was super cold, but we are starting. We did restart the team, the My Legacy Striders team, to help raise money for pancreatic cancer. Education, awareness, funding, all that kind of stuff. So I'll post the link to my fundraising team, which is My Legacy Striders. I'll post the link in the show notes to that fundraising team as well. Other than that, why don't we save some time and end today's episode?
I love it. Why not?
So again, thank you, Mark. We appreciate
you,
you
Mark.
being a guest this week.
You bet. It's been terrific.
And we will catch you in next week's episode of the podcast.